Hello and welcome to episode 26 of Entertainment of Excellence, the podcast where we talk about films, TV, all of it. Hi, I'm Ollie,
I'm Thom.
And I'm Ben.
and today we're going to be talking about the 2018 film Upgrade. This will contain spoilers.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, we just watched the 2018 film Upgrade. Pretty cool.
It is indeed.
I think we all liked it.
Yeah?
So I'll do a brief rundown of the plot. So it follows a man who gets mugged by these mysterious men who kill his wife and then paralyze him, so he becomes a quadriplegic. But he gets given a special chip by this spooky man who has a house that has no door and you can just walk in, but we'll talk about that later. Who gives him a chip that can send his brain signal so he can move his limbs again, and the chip kind of starts talking to him and control his actions, and he goes around murdering the people that killed his wife. And then spoilers. Do we need to talk about the ending yet? Maybe not. I can say the ending. Spoilers. It turns out the people were hired by the chip STEM to paralyze him, so that then STEM would be able to control them and stuff and like become a human. So there you go. That's the ending.
Yeah. And he kills the guy that made STEM.
Oh yeah, that's true. A lot of people get killed.
They do.
At least two.
So, my thoughts of this film, I hadn't actually looked at the IMDb rating beforehand, which I know we talked about that last week in our special episode 25. But for some reason, I had it in my head that it was quite low rated, so I actually went in this thinking I wouldn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I was wrong. I did actually, as it started, I was thinking this style was so good. I really liked. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of reds, as you can see from the poster, but the kind of cyberpunk environment. I didn't realize how low the budget was. So it's estimated around $5 million US. But the world looks so good. There's a lot of cool gadgets, but it's not too far in the future. So it's kind of got a cyberpunk feel, and that kind of drew me into it. And the soundtrack really benefited that with the kind of ambient, droning tones that really helped me get into it. So I think when you start watching the film, that atmosphere really draws you into it.
Yeah, definitely. I think the fact that it was obviously set in the future in a very technologically driven world, but the fact that it's not like Star Wars or something. It's still grounded in reality, and you could see a sort of future like this happening in, say, like 40, 50 years. It's like when it says science fiction, it's like the most true definition of the word. I think it's like fiction that is sort of grounded in reality, and it's a lot scarier and more intriguing for the viewer to think that this could or something like this could be able to happen in the near future.
Yeah, because there's quite a bit of a mixture between things that we have now, but sort of just more extreme. Like there's a scene where you see these people who have been in VR for like weeks, and obviously there's these futuristic car designs, but you sort of see how they don't always work, and the protagonist at the start has a car that you'd see now, just a regular car. And then even like the chip and STEM, it's not been like fully integrated into society. It still has to be hidden from everyone else, which sort of shows that it's not too unrealistic, and that's why it's sort of more frightening, maybe because it's more imaginable.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the only thing that kind of nagged me about the world building was that a lot of the cars were kind of from, this year or older. I felt like they could have made some of the cars a bit better because obviously they had like everyone had some kind of chip to identify them, and they had police drones and things like that. And Gray had a very quite a futuristic self-driving car, although to be honest, it doesn't look too dissimilar to the Tesla's Cybertruck. But
yeah.
I felt like maybe it's just me that it's literally just such a small thing. Like the cars are normal, but that was just one thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did like the idea of it kind of being a hidden chip that you couldn't reveal to anyone because the trials wouldn't be allowed. But it then felt weird to me that there are these police drones going around, and he kind of would get up out of his chair in broad daylight and not get caught. He does eventually get caught, to be fair, but at least instantly.
I felt that
Yeah.
was kind of weird, the way he was so confident that he wouldn't get caught, when it's the world building sort of shows that there are drones everywhere, and I assume if it's like a logical progression of how our society is, then there'll be CCTV cameras, there'll be surveillance footage just about everywhere. And the only sort of care he seems to take is when he's first starting out looking for the people who murdered his wife. He sort of looks up, sees a police drone, then waits for it to pass, and then gets up and just walks with no care in the world. That was a bit weird. I felt like he was far too careless for his own good, and there wasn't really the consequences of that shown. I don't know. That's like one of the main nitpicks I have with it.
Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff about him like being able to walk again was underplayed a bit. Like there's a scene where his mum finds out and she sort of underreacts. Like if you saw
Yeah.
your son who had to be able to walk for however long and then he's just walking about.
She was
I
like
know
an
it cuts
NPC
away,
in a
but
game.
yeah. She was like, what?
She's just like, what?
But
Okay.
I do want to move on to some good things because there were quite a lot of things I really liked. So we talked about the atmosphere and world, but the action was like really gripping and visceral, and I could always tell what was going on. And it was kind of more hand-to-hand combat with only a few people around. That first one with him letting Stem take over and fight the first guy, and then at the end like splitting his jaw was really like,
oh yeah,
that was quite Cronenberg-esque.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it did seem really good, and they did a kind of I don't know how they did it, but the camera almost exactly followed like his head movements at points.
Yeah.
Basically, I listened to an interview with him, and apparently they literally did that by just strapping an iPhone to him and then like letting the camera focus on. But I thought that was quite a unique style of filming the action. But
yeah, it was cool.
I also think they didn't do it excessively. Like they did it when it served its purpose, but it wasn't like used all the time, so you just got fed up with it.
Yeah, it was mainly used in action scenes when Stem took over, and that really helped enhance the fact that it was the computer driving him, and like especially
and the noises every time he moved.
I loved it when like he's been ducking out of the way and then sort of gets back up, but obviously the camera's focused on his perspective, so it looks like just the background's moving. That was I really liked that.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of the action was really cool. That kind of stuff.
I also like the fact that obviously you can tell that it's the chip that's controlling him at all times. And in the first sequence, he sort of has that look on his face like I don't know what I'm doing. But that can be a bit cheesy, and they did that to an extent where it didn't get repetitive. Like sometimes it does a bit in Venom.
Yeah, so one thing we can talk about is that this is kind of very similar to Venom in that, something takes over this guy who looks very similar to Tom Hardy. It talks to him and enhances his fighting abilities, but I would say it's a lot. It felt a lot better than Venom, just the
Yeah.
filmmaking and more stylistic, and it didn't have the kind of weird CGI Venom things fighting each other, but it you really used its budget well, like with the small robot arms in his apartment that were supposed to help him out. The kind of the biological people with guns in their arms, that like gun arm thing was that looked really good. I've only just started thinking about it, but the way that they kind of got their skin to go around it and stuff, it looked really good.
There's
Yeah.
that scene where the leader of that group sneezes and then it like
Yeah,
goes onto the well, I don't even know.
it shoots
Bit
out
weird, but
nanobots that
yeah.
go
Oh,
into
yeah.
this guy's nose and then cut up his brain.
Completely unrelated, but just a weird little thing I saw is, do you remember when, I can't remember what it was called, basically just Mark Zuckerberg comes to
Yeah.
the hospital and he's wearing a mask, and I'm like, wait,
Oh,
this
yeah.
was 2018? Oh.
It was kind of spooky,
Yeah,
but he did say he wouldn't give him bird flu.
indeed.
I've talked about the soundtrack a little bit, but there was also some interesting sound design things. So I was joking before about the kind of zoom noises as he moved. I know it should probably have been cheesy, but I liked it for some reason.
Yeah.
This is one of those films where it really does harken back to the kind of 80s visceral sci-fi that after seeing this I really want more of. I feel like it was kind of like an action-based long Black Mirror episode.
Yeah.
And I feel like I want more because I've actually been looking at cyberpunk stuff recently anyway, so this was a kind of great thing to watch at this time for me.
It's definitely a
seeing
product
cyberpunk
of
things.
what's come before it, and it embraces a lot of elements from other films in the genre, but it also is very it comes up with loads of new concepts and new ways of filming action, which are quite revolutionary, I guess. Something that I heard the director saying was that he he thought the thing, you know, how it opened with like a narration rather than credits.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
He thought that was going to be like the big takeaway rather than the way the action was filmed,
How
which is
so?
quite interesting. I don't really know.
I thought that
What
was
was
just
the
like
narration at the start? I don't remember it.
it was basically just, you know, when films open and it's like X Productions presents a Y film
Oh yeah, that was
I
upgrade.
didn't really know what it was at first.
that I had to. That I remember that now, but I ignored it because at the start my internet was being really weird, so the resolution was terrible. So I was fiddling around with stuff trying to get it to be
Nice.
normal again. But yeah, I remember that now. That was kind of weird.
Yeah. But not groundbreaking, I wouldn't say.
I just thought it was
No.
stylistic because I knew
Yeah, I thought.
because I knew beforehand that he was going to become a quadriplegic and have become mugged and like become really disabled. So I thought that was just going to be like sort of just the AIs talking to him, like telling him
Yeah.
stuff, and just the sort of stylistic thing. Sort of like
I think it was in the voice of. I was just gonna say, I think it was in the voice of the the AI that was helping him around the house.
yeah.
I think it's that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I don't remember what that was called.
I'd be interested to see why he thought that would be the main takeaway. I thought it was literally just a crazy credit.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
not some huge philosophical bombshell, just like the director having a bit of fun.
Yeah.
I really liked that opening. Oh no, the opening was him fixing the cars, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was kind of waiting for him to already just be paralyzed from the waist down, but I was
Yeah,
wrong.
same.
But I think the first bit was just cool of him, showing his job and going to the spooky Mark Zuckerberg man whose
Yeah.
house is below two rocks. But I really do want to talk about the fact that this guy doesn't have a door. That really
Yeah.
annoyed me, like, because he just wanders in later on in the film and shoots two guys because he doesn't have a
Yeah, like, what
door. He wants
isn't
to
it
be like
just
a
on a
really
beach?
secretive.
Like, what if you were just walking on the beach and then you just end up in someone's house by accident?
Yeah,
I'd do
because
that.
he said he's not like talked to people for however many years, and
Maybe it's a
yet
private beach. I don't know. But to be fair,
it just felt so weird to me.
yeah. I don't know.
But it did feel a lot like the Ex Machina house, if you ever seen Ex Machina. That kind of tech guru style place. But I mean, so the inside was cool, but get a better door. That's what I wanted to tell him. It had some interesting ideas in there that maybe could have been explored a tiny bit more. Like the ending could have been. I think it was actually a really good ending of Gray being stuck inside his own head. That maybe
Yeah.
could have been shown more, the impact of it, because you kind of see it and you're like, oh yeah, I guess that's what's happened, but you don't
Yeah.
think about it that much. It's got the kind of Inception feel, like at the end of
Yeah.
Inception is Cobb dreaming. Does it really matter if he's dreaming, etc., etc.? It could, because obviously the people with VR in the hacker's house or whatever who just wanted to escape the real world.
Yeah.
And I always think that's an interesting idea.
What I usually do when I've finished a film is, especially for the podcast, is I'll reread the plot on Wikipedia just so I've like reinforced it in my head. And basically at the end of this, it was saying that he's happy in his own head and stuff, but I couldn't tell if it's just me, but he didn't. Like, he looked happy because he was seeing his wife, but it also looked like he was aware he was dreaming. I thought there was going to be a twist, like, where he's doesn't want to stay in his own head, and he's like, no, wait, you're dead. Things bad are happening in real life. But, like...
Well, there was a brief flash to that earlier in the film, wasn't there, to
Yeah.
that scene. So I see what you mean when he sort of has that distrust on his face and he's sort of questioning it.
Yeah, it seemed like you were meant to... Yeah, I'm being quite specific in my nitpicking purely because I don't actually have that many. But here I just felt you're meant to accept that he's happy in his own head, but I think it was maybe an acting or possibly direction thing that he didn't look like he wanted to stay there. It looked like he was sort of halfway between deciding, do I stay here or do I not?
Yeah.
Maybe like an extra shot of him, because when Stem through his body says that his mind's broken, he's happy in his own dream. It'd have been good if there was like another shot afterwards where he was like laughing and happy with his wife or something, just to reinforce that.
But I mean, I guess if you're comparing it to like the ending of Inception, there's always that ambiguity regarding whether he would be happy and whether he does know if it's reality or not.
Yeah. Another thing a theme that kind of propped up and maybe wasn't explored too much was the whole idea. I mean, even though it literally feels like the plot of the film, but the idea of computers replacing stuff humans can do, because it's suggested by the Mark Zuckerberg guy, but he's got such like an evil voice that you instantly know whose side to be on. But it is a difficult question, I think, about, he's saying that this computer can do, everything a person can do, but it's not really explored about, what are the limitations? Should there be limitations on what computers can do? Well, that's always been an interesting idea to me, and I just wish it hadn't been something said by the evil blonde man.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the STEM, like, surpasses his intellect and influence at the end, and then you sort of his goal, the STEM's motive was to kill him so that he couldn't have any rivals. So I mean that's sort of implying that it's like an autonomous being that you wouldn't really have any other technology to rival it. But
Mm.
I guess it is kind of shown through, it kind of shows him being able to move is like an amazing thing for him. So that's the good sides. But then also, if you get a robot to help you walk again, they might just kill loads of people.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And but I think it is an interesting message of, for example, the scene where he's kind of going like, is it me that's moving my limbs or is it you? Talking to STEM about that, and that's kind of like a almost philosophical concept of if a quadruped did get some kind of help in their brain to send signals to their limbs again, is it really them doing it, and does it matter?
Yeah.
And I think one important thing to think about when implementing chips to help people move again is to not give it artificial intelligence.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
need to be
I think that'd be a good
totally in
idea.
control. Otherwise, it'll take over. Yeah, I definitely saw what you mean about. It was sort of mentioned in passing the effects it could have on wider society. Because there was a really great line where Mark Zuckerberg was introducing STEM, and the main guy, Gray, was like, "You see the future, I see 10 people on an unemployment line." I thought that was quite powerful.
Yeah.
You know, where will the workers go? Will they be pushed below or something?
What a reference.
But I mean, that the final scene of him walking off with STEM in full control, I think is really cool. And although they're obviously leaving it open ended, I don't usually say this, but I probably would maybe like to see maybe a sequel, but maybe like another film exploring the universe deeper because it feels like a nice closed story of one individual, but it definitely feels like there's a bigger picture that
Yeah,
well,
I see what you
there
mean.
is
Oh,
a TV series that may be happening. So the director specifically said that he didn't want to do a sequel, but then I think the producer so someone from Blumhouse said something about maybe funding a TV series that was going to be set afterwards. I do have the details. Sorry, where is it? It was going to be set a few years after with an evolved version of STEM, and the government is using STEM as a way to curb criminal activity.
oh,
So
that'd be
that
interesting.
actually sounds. I don't know if it means using STEM to control people to stop them doing crime, which is kind of like the Netflix film that came out recently that is apparently awful but had a cool concept of physically stopping. Last Days of American Crime,
Yeah.
of physically stopping people doing crime, or it could mean a kind of RoboCop-esque thing of giving these police officers STEM to combat crime. But so the world may be revisited because the director did say he'd do it if he was given enough money. I think.
Nice.
But yeah, it was. I think I do like the whole world and the world of Upgrade. I mean, and it would be nice to see it revisited. I do like those little drones and all the kind of Alexa but more things.
Yeah.
I do like the whole vibe of it, and I want it to show more of kind of. You see a lot of run-down areas, but Gray was a very wealthy guy, and it'd be interesting to see how that kind of happened. Because another thing it kind of just briefly goes over is one of the biological gunmen people says to Gray's wife, who I'll talk about that later. But he says like, um, I bet you just see a piece of uneducated scum or something to her.
Oh yeah,
And kind of the way that different class can change perception of people is also an interesting idea. But it'd be cool to show how that happened. I assume it is some kind of unjust system.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now I
That
think
nice to
about
see.
it, like when the film started, I figured that was going to be a larger theme in the film, because obviously if you've got something present at the start, then you'd think that it would be revisited in the later in the film, but it's sort of just
Chekhov's gun and all that.
yeah. Basically, yeah. Just here, it brushes over that line where he's like, "You look at me and see a piece of dirt on your shoe." It'd have been cooler if that was explored more, but I guess if they're going to do a TV series based on it, that still could happen.
Yeah.
I think that is referenced later because when Gray comes to track down all the killers, I think that guy who was like the leader of the group, but obviously he's like low down in the hierarchy with Zuckerberg, and then above that is the STEM. I think he's sort of saying that the technology has empowered them,
Yeah,
and I think that's definitely a really interesting concept because although we see the harm that technology's done in this society, it has enabled a lot of people to benefit, whether that be
Yeah.
through the physical limitations that they've overcome, or like uh, whether they've been able to like fulfill a purpose because um, they were perceived in a certain way beforehand, but now that they've got this technology, sort of like improve their own life.
yeah,
Just before we've said like all the good things about it, I'm slightly worried because I do have a few criticisms I want to say, and because you two aren't talking about them, I don't know if maybe it's just me, but so I just want to go through them quickly because I did actually really enjoy this. I just want to say things I felt like it could be improved. So I felt like the plot was kind of you knew what was going to happen the whole way. I knew that it would be either STEM or Mark Zuckerberg that had paid those guys to paralyze him,
yeah,
and the idea of someone hurting someone or killing someone's wife, which is, I mean, a female character getting killed off at the start is something called fridging, which seems to happen a lot. Which is where a female character is sole purpose is to get killed to spur on the usually male protagonist. Which did happen here, but fair enough. It
Yeah, I
always
think
seems
the
to
thing
kind
about
of get helped, but so the plot was kind of normal. I felt, which for such a stylistic film, which is kind of unique in its presentation, it would be even better if it had a unique plot. But to be honest, I think the style holds it up a lot. The amazing action and cinematography and world building really holds up the kind of basic story. So don't worry about the story too much. I just think it could have been a bit better.
I mean,
And
like the twist and
yeah,
reveal at the end, although it was a bit predictable, I also felt that it was a bit rushed that they sort of went, oh, it was actually Mark Zuckerberg that was in control, and then straight away it's like, oh no, I was being controlled by the technology. I
yeah,
yeah.
feel like it wasn't as impactful because they sort of just glossed over the first twist.
And there are a few like cheesy moments that were borderlining a bit too much Venom-esque, like when he was beating up those guys in the bathroom and kind of said a few like snarky one-liners or something. I was like, oh no, don't do this. it,
oh
it
yeah,
it just felt a bit off tonally, but I think mostly the dialogue was good, but it's just a few examples of a weak-ish plot and some moments that were slightly off tonally, but that doesn't take away from like everything else which is amazing. So we talked about a lot of things, but another thing I think we should mention is the pacing. It's probably one of the best pacing of a film's one of the best pacing for a film that I've seen for quite a long time. There's no unnecessary scenes. I mean, it's an hour and 40 minutes, so it's fairly short anyway. But you go through that at breakneck speed. It doesn't feel any longer than your standard 50-minute Black Mirror episode, for example, despite it being twice the length. So because the way it's an interesting process the director did. It looks like he intentionally shopped around the smaller studios for this film, even though he knew he could probably get a bigger budget because he co-created like the Saw franchise and stuff like that. But that was just when he was a writer. So he made sure to get a kind of small budget and kept shaving off scenes or parts that meant they could save budget. And what it gives is this really like tight, well-paced film. So although the plot may not be the best, it's you really blast through it, and it helps the kind of breakneck speed of the action with the breakneck speed of the plot. It is a really fun ride. Like, this is a film where if you don't enjoy it while watching it, I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know why you wouldn't enjoy it.
One thing about the pacing that I noticed was there's like the scene where the scientist's trying to take back control because he's like being rebellious and he's fighting against the killers of his wife, and he doesn't want anyone to know about the chip. And then so Mark Zuckerberg starts to take back control, and then Stem's trying to tell Gray to go to the hacker. And like that scene, it just felt like they didn't have to dwell on it for ages. It probably lasted about 10 to 15 minutes, and it was quite important to the plot, but it was just like that was an example where I thought the pacing was really good.
Yeah, they didn't spend any unnecessary time, and like the hacker character, I guess, was. You can make an argument the hacker was a bit one-dimensional, but to be fair, they didn't really need any more dimensions to them, given they're just there to serve the purpose that, to repair STEM, and then obviously ultimately give it autonomy.
Because
disable
the input guards.
Because when you look back at it, the whole thing that STEM was trying to gain autonomy sort of makes sense. And you're like, well, why didn't I see this? I think, as you said, some parts of the plot were quite predictable, but I think that was executed very well. The whole thing about disabling the input guards, and he's in a panic and he can't write stuff down, and he's not really questioning anything, and because he doesn't have any technical experience, I felt like that was cool to think that really STEM was controlling all of this stuff from all along.
Yeah, but I think it helped. It wasn't overly predictable because it did feel like it was always like a companionship or cooperation between Gray and STEM. Like at the start when it's revealed that STEM can actually speak, and then it always feels like although STEM is instructing Gray on the most efficient ways to fight, it feels like although obviously Gray's not always in control, it doesn't feel like STEM's taking over until the end.
Yeah. I don't know, I kind of felt like it was something was always going to go awry, because obviously STEM does just murder a guy. So I was when that happened, I was like, yeah, STEM's going to do some bad stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I guess it depends. I don't think, as I said, I still really enjoyed it, even though I could kind of tell where things were going to go. I think it's still enjoyable.
Well, I guess that's the thing of like the technology by itself needs a host to be powerful, and then so that's why it's creating the idea that they can't ever really take over because they're reliant on humans to start off with. It's only after Gray sort of emotionally breaks down, but that's because of himself that the technology is able to take over entirely.
Yeah, that is quite an interesting idea. And another thing I just thought of is kind of, so you've got the technologically enhanced people with like the guns in their arms, and they've got greater fighting abilities. And they wanted to have a kind of group of upgraded people,
The squad.
as they were saying. They wanted to recruit Gray, but STEM specifically wanted to stop any other computers gaining control, and I don't know if that was supposed to kind of show that humans are more likely to try and stick in groups, and then the kind of computers just want to make themselves more powerful. I
Yeah.
don't know if I'm maybe reading too much into things, but that was an interesting thing, I thought.
Yeah.
What did you think about the acting? Because I felt that I didn't really know any of the actors, I don't think, and at times was slightly unconvincing or a bit inconsistent. But I know that with Gray, it's always the question: is it him or is it the artificial
Yeah.
intelligence taking control?
Yeah.
I like-
mean, oh, go on.
I liked Gray, and I also liked the detective, and I think his actor of his mum was serviceable. I mean, didn't have too much to do. You've seen a lot of concerned mothers, but I mean, as we said, she didn't look very shocked when she could see her son walking. But that's probably a direction thing.
Yeah.
There's
And
just a
tell that
few,
he's
obviously,
coming
like
to,
the Mark
very much.
Zuckerberg guy was just a bit too evil. So I think maybe some performances were a bit over the top, I would say, but nothing that was immersion breaking.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we'll talk a bit more about this in a minute. It had quite a small budget, and it seemed like a lot of that went into the cinematography and the effects, which I think for this movie was a really good choice. So obviously
Yeah.
they didn't have like the biggest high-profile actors. I don't think anything was bad. There were, as you said, there were definitely some points where it seemed a bit iffy. I think to be fair on the mother, that like she could have been a great actor, but the lines and direction she had was just there wasn't anything like I can't remember a single line she said throughout the whole movie.
Yeah.
And then as I said earlier with Gray, there's I thought he was good. He was the actor sort of suited him throughout the film. The only bit that I did feel was very iffy was right at the end when he's meant to be happy in his dream world, and it didn't look like he was happy. To be like, I felt that that could have been a direction thing, to be fair, but he could have looked a lot happier. There could have been another shot showing him that he's like happy in his dream world, whereas he's sort of. It looked like he was in between. He looked like if it was another film, it'd be that critical moment in the climax where he's deciding, do I stay here or do I go back and help the real world? It looked like that sort of thing, but here it just a bit iffy. But yeah, let's talk about the budget, because we've seen various figures around the internet, and I don't think anyone knows exactly how much. Seen on Wikipedia it says $3 million. Seen $5 million floating around as well. But like the point to take away is it really wasn't that much. And didn't you say that he'd actively like reduced the budget as the script progressed or something?
Yeah, there were some things that they were doing it for budget cuts, and then he felt later on it had helped. So, like the initial surgery of putting STEM in was going to be done with robot arms, and then they changed the script so that it was people doing it.
Yeah.
And Whannell, Whannell? That's it, right? Yeah, Whannell. Leigh Whannell said that he felt like that was actually a better choice. He enjoyed because it wasn't too futuristic.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew that it was a low budget before I went in. I told you as well, didn't I, Ben?
Yeah, you did.
I can definitely see why if you just watched it, you wouldn't think oh, this is a low budget film
No,
until you
I
see.
didn't.
Yeah,
When Ollie told me what the budget was, I was like, "Wow, really?" Because
uh,
I was actually thinking while watching it, I was like, "These effects are really good. Like the robot arms and the drones and everything look really good."
There was this gorgeous shot early in the film. I think this was before he became a quadriplegic, where it just showed that this sort of the city and the drones flying. Like,
Yeah, that was good.
I loved that shot. That was
also
So
the shots of Mark Zuckerberg's house were quite beautiful as well.
yeah.
I know they
yeah,
did
the
put a door,
rocks
but
and stuff.
yeah,
So shout out to Stefan Duskio. Good job on your cinematography
Indeed.
because it was good. And after seeing this, I was interested in what other things he directed because I felt the direction was good, so I wanted to look at it. But he's not really done anything else. He done one thing before it, which I've forgotten, and then one film after. Oh, I think what he done before was he directed like Insidious Chapter 3 or something, and then he's done this film, and then The Invisible Man, which came out last year, which I think he also wrote, which
oh, was
I've
that
heard
like that
has a lot. It's got
Australian
Elizabeth
indie
Moss in
horror
it.
film?
Is it? Pardon?
That was meant to. Was that Australian indie sort of horror film? That was meant
I
to
don't know if
be
it's.
quite good.
I think it's Leigh Whannell that's Australian. I'm not sure because I think someone said that Upgrade was Australian, so it's probably Leigh Whannell. But it's supposed to be better than people expected. So
Yeah,
it's got 7.1. I assume Elizabeth Moss is really good in it because she is a really good actress. She's been like Handmaid's Tale, Mad Men, and a few other things that you can probably find. And that I'm pretty sure I heard that has good direction of kind of showing empty space to scare it. So the directing is supposed to be good in that, but again, it's the plot that's a bit weaker. So I'd be interested to see if, because he wrote and directed that as well. I'd be interested to see if Leigh Whannell maybe goes just fully into directing, or to be fair, I mean, it's the dialogue's good and everything. So maybe if he works on his writing a bit more, he'll come out with. I have a feeling he's going to come out with a really good film in the future.
Yeah, he's definitely one to
Um,
watch.
Yeah,
it's
so
interesting that he
that'd be
didn't want
interesting.
to pursue like a sequel, but it's the producers or other people working on it that do.
Yeah, well, money. Should we wrap up and give it a rating?
Indeed.
Yeah,
So
Okay.
I feel like this one is quite difficult because we've said quite a lot of negative things about it, but they weren't necessarily things I thought when watching it.
Mm.
Yeah, I think a lot of the stuff was in retrospect. I really, really enjoyed it. It's by no means perfect, obviously. We've given the stuff we don't like. I've been very specific with a couple of nitpicks. I'm gonna go. I'm also slightly biased given I like the cyberpunk genre and the sort of philosophical questions of like how sort of how much in control a human is when they become fused with a machine. I'm gonna go high 7. This is hard. I think I was about to say something about Nightcrawler, but I've actually can't remember much about Nightcrawler since we watched it, and it's only been a couple episodes ago. What did I rate Marriage Story? I think I enjoyed it more than Marriage Story. 7.6. 7.7. On par with You Were Never Really Here. Yeah, that's fair.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I did think it was really good, but maybe not on the same level. So
Ooh.
I don't think it was on par with Nightcrawler. I've got to decide. See, the problem is Fear and Loathing is so low down for what I would put and I'm trying to think like I don't think it's as good as that, which would put it way lower for you two, but not for me.
Yeah.
So I need to try and decide. I think also Good Time as well. I think it's better than Good Time, but not as good as. No, I don't think it's as good as Good Time, but I think it's better than The Social Network. Although I gave them both the same. So let me think. What did I give? Okay, I'm gonna give it a 7.3. Final answer.
Ooh.
I agree with Ben. I really did like this, and I thought it had a really good style. The story wasn't always the best. It was at times a bit predictable, but I think it's like Nightcrawler, as you were saying. I haven't really thought about it much since, for some reason. Whereas I feel like this film is pretty memorable. It explored some very cool themes as well. So I'm gonna go with a 7.8.
Ooh.
That's interesting because I actually really enjoyed the themes and things of Nightcrawler, and I have actually thought about it since. So I don't know, maybe it's just differing opinions. No, I don't know why. I'm not sure. I just feel like the bad guy now for rating it.
Cool.
I mean, it's not even that much lower.
Well, it's now a 7.6. That's on par with The Interview. Slightly under You Were Never Really Here. Yeah, that seems about right.
Above No Country for Old Men.
What did I give No Country for Old Men? I think I gave it quite low.
You and Meanie. No, 7.4. That's not that bad.
Alright. Fair enough. Cool. So, before Thom rushes on to the recommendations, I'm going to quickly talk about the submission spotlight. Unfortunately, last week's fell through because the game we were going to be looking at, the designer's Twitter account got suspended for some reason, so unfortunately we didn't get that done. But if you create any type of entertainment media, if that's like short films, games, books, stories, music, whatever, send it in and we'll dedicate a 10-minute segment to you. And most of all, we'd love to have you on to talk about it rather than just like look at it from a third person perspective. It'd be cool to see what the creator has to say about it. So, and that doesn't have to be live. We could pre-record that whenever you'd be interested. So if you'd be interested in coming on the podcast or just having us discuss your work, you can contact us via our website, which is entertainmentofexcellence.weebly.com, or just DM us on Twitter or Instagram, which are both at EOV Podcast. So that is cool.
It is. I like how you said don't rush on to the recommendations, Thom, but I don't actually have any this week.
Ooh.
So
I didn't.
I could probably think of one,
but I can think of. I didn't have one originally, but now I'm thinking about it. I've kind of got one.
Yeah, same with me.
So, well, I'll go first before I forget. So basically, when I was watching this film, it reminded me a lot, well, of Black Mirror, but also I'm going to recommend a YouTube channel called Dust, which basically it's a great thing to subscribe to because it releases sort of like short films, short sci-fi films from like, I think it's anyone just between like students and sort of just independent filmmakers who are doing it for like passion projects and want a bit more exposure. So it's got like, I can't remember, I think it's got like 1 million subscribers or something, but I hardly ever see it mentioned online, even in like sci-fi circles. So it's cool. I'm trying to think of a couple of shorts that I really liked. It's basically just, it doesn't it doesn't make the films itself. It's essentially just sort of a platform for filmmakers to get more exposure. Oh, I've got a playlist here of some of the ones I like the most. Have a look.
Damn, I need to. Yeah, these look good.
There's a great one called Deep Clean, which is sort of like a comedy, but that's also obviously sci-fi about these like people who work in underground, and this teenager's gone and joined them, and he doesn't know what's going on. Set in Yorkshire, so proud of that.
Yeah, I actually recognise the guy on the thumbnail. He's been in.
Yeah.
quite
Oh,
a few
the
things.
opening music is such a bop. Just looking through other stuff I liked. The Fisherman was good. There's also there's one here called The Time Agent, which I remember watching and I remember enjoying, but I can't actually remember anything about it. I'm gonna have to go back through these. So yeah, basically, just there's absolutely loads here. There's almost definitely going to be something for everyone, and it's 2 million subscribers. They usually release about one or two every week, so you've got a constant
Do you
stream of content.
It looks like you
Never
like all the
heard.
horror ones. So I'm gonna look at quite a few. Is it one of them's got Nancy from Stranger Things in it? These are damn. How have I not heard of
No.
this?
Yeah,
I've never
it's
heard of
great.
it.
Oh,
I'll
yeah, they've gotten like a near endless supply. Tell you what, I'm gonna go even more, and I'm gonna give 2 recommendations to make up for the lack of ones I've had. There's a similar channel that's very much like this called Crypt TV, and it's like pretty much the same but for horror. Except they also have, I think, the difference between Crypt TV and Dust is a distributor, and Crypt TV makes their own stuff, so they've kind of got like some series. I haven't actually been watching a lot of it recently, but they used to have a really good series called The Look-See that was kind of creepy and cool, which had like segments that were like 5 minutes, and then like had seasons of like 5 of those, and then gave like a super cut that's like 20 minutes long. It's cool. So
Nice.
Crypt TV and Dust are 2 YouTube channels to subscribe to.
Cool.
I think those
Even though I said I don't have any recommendations, I just thought of a few things I can talk about. So I watched Karate Kid for the first time yesterday. I know it's an 80s classic, and it was actually
Was there
different
any-
to what I thought. There's the karate's all like right at the end, but it felt like just really comforting, and the pacing is like really 80s pacing. I don't know how to describe it, but it's a lot slower than this film, but it just kind of felt nostalgic and comforting, even though I hadn't seen it before.
was there any Indonesian
I
penjak
think it's
style?
quite fun. No, it was all karate,
Right, I'm not watching it
unfortunately.
then.
But but I think it's definitely enjoyable. I don't know, it's pretty good. And another thing is, I've recently been playing a lot of Hotline Miami, 2 specifically, and that has a really interesting fan community that do a lot of fan films, and the ways that people interpret the Hotline Miami universe and the ways that they do the short films are always really different. So I think if just looking at anything to do with Hotline Miami, because it's such a unique game, it's really stylistic and its story is interesting, and it's got like the soundtrack is amazing. You'll probably heard of the soundtrack before, to be honest.
Yeah, I
A kind of
definitely
80s synthwave thing. So just check out like a few fan films if you want to see what people are doing. I think that there's a lot of interesting stuff to watch.
Nice.
You got anything?
Well, I watched Birdman a couple of weeks ago,
Oh yeah.
which is it's pretty good. I like it's basically does it like a one-shot take pretty much throughout the whole film, apart from the end. And if you don't know, it's about this washed up superhero actor who's making a play. It's all about like the conflicts that he's having in his family and with his friends. But it's all over the course of, well, it's like a few days, and it just follows his story. But it's got a really cool directing.
Yeah, I really liked it, and the kind of like the soundtrack is really good as well. The drums
plays on like a lot of natural elements.
Yeah.
Groovy. Nice. So, not really much else to say. Finish a little bit early. I think we deserve that after
doing next week.
That is true. Because last week we made the awful mistake of not saying what we're going to be doing this week. So this next, if you're subscribed to the mailing list, which you absolutely should because it gives you access to our schedule, you'd have seen that episode 27 is Fantasia, the Disney film from 1940. Except that we've got quite a busy week coming up. Not this week, but the one after. So we're gonna use our backup episode called where we reviewed The Irishman. So that's a groovy film to watch. It's a Netflix original. So you're gonna have to get Netflix or to watch it. If you don't have Netflix, it obviously has the trial, so you can watch it that way. It is a very long film, so and we will discuss in the episode about how we watched it as essentially a mini series. I might end up tweeting and putting on Instagram that the image that we used. But it's a really long film, but it's kind of worth it, I guess. So yeah, go and watch that, and we'll discuss it next week, or have discussed it and release the recording.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on podcast platforms, and go on our social medias and subscribe to the mailing list. I'm awful at saying like and subscribe, so there you go. Give us feedback. That's a good one. We'd love any feedback because we're still relatively new, even though we've done 26 episodes now. So thanks for listening. All right, see you.
All right, see you. Yeah, that's 16.